My name is John Terrell and I am a creative director at a major advertising agency. My wife Mara and I have been married for 15 years and we have a 13-year-old daughter, Jenny. And while on the surface we appear to be a happy, middle-class family, in reality our marriage has long been in disrepair. Initially, it was small changes that caught my attention. Mara started coming home late more often, each time citing work commitments. She became cold to me and stopped being affectionate with me. Also, I noticed that she had set a new password for her cell phone, something she had never done before. There were signs that Mara was hiding something. My suspicions deepened. By chance, I found some suspicious text messages on Mara's cell phone. They were messages between her and Edward Patson, a colleague at the company. The content was ambiguous and clearly went beyond normal coworker relations. I was thunderstruck and furious, but I held my tongue. I needed more hard evidence. I started to investigate and follow Mara's whereabouts. I finally witnessed Mara's meeting with Edward outside a hotel. At that moment, I felt my heart being torn apart. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, had betrayed our marriage and made our relationship a joke. Anger, humiliation, disappointment, and all sorts of emotions swirled in my heart, almost engulfing me. But I forced myself to calm down. I couldn't let my emotions dictate my actions. I know that a hasty decision could ruin my life and hurt my daughter. I needed a plan. Thus began the long and careful process of preparing for my divorce. I had to be legally, financially, and emotionally prepared to get out of this marital quagmire. I knew it would be an uphill battle, but I had no choice. I had to fight for a new future for myself and for my daughter. The moment I found out the truth, I knew there was no way Mara and I could ever be together again. Her betrayal tore the foundation of our marriage apart, and I couldn't forgive, nor could I continue to tolerate the hypocrisy of married life. Divorce was my only option. But I know that divorce is not a child's play. It meant a long legal process, a complicated division of assets, and custody of our daughter, Jenny. I had to be fully prepared in order to gain the upper hand in this battle. My first priority was to collect evidence. Mara's text messages with Edward, photos of her hotel rendezvous, they were all trump cards in my hand. I also hired a private detective to investigate Mara's infidelity. With this evidence, I'll be in an advantageous position in court. Next, I started working on the financial issues. I consulted an attorney about the possible division of assets in a divorce. To protect my interests, I began to quietly transfer my assets, depositing most of my cash into a private account. I also made a detailed inventory of my personal property to ensure that Mara could not take advantage of my legal rights. While preparing for the divorce, I had to maintain a semblance of calm. I couldn't let Mara suspect anything, and I couldn't let Jenny notice anything different. Every day, I had to put on a smile and play the role of husband and father. This disguise was overwhelming, but I had to endure it for the sake of the final victory. I started to work more and more overtime, and used work as an excuse to spend less time with Mara, and the communication between us became less and less, and the atmosphere became colder and colder. The communication between us became less and less, and the atmosphere became colder and colder, and Mara seemed to resent my distancing, but she didn't realize that this was part of my plan. Finally, late one night, I asked Mara for a divorce. She was shocked, then furious and hysterical, asking me why. I smiled coldly and spread out all the evidence, and Mara suddenly turned pale and sat down on the sofa. She knew that she couldn't deny it. Negotiations began quickly, and Mara tried to get more of the estate and custody of Jenny, but her demands paled in the face of the evidence. My attorney fought her tooth and nail to defend my rights. Eventually, we came to an agreement. I got most of the property and joint custody of Jenny, and Mara left the family. The day I signed the divorce papers, I felt a sense of relief. Although it was a difficult process, I was out of the cage. From then on, I was a free man. But I knew that divorce was just the beginning. I still had to face my daughter's questions, adjust to being single again, and repair the trauma inside. The road ahead is long, but I am ready. Because I understand that life is always moving forward in the test, and only by overcoming difficulties can we gain happiness and growth. The dust of my divorce settled and I began to readjust to the single life. At first, I felt overwhelmed. Without Jenny, the house seemed empty. I spent a lot of time alone, staring at the TV or working late at the office. I knew I had to get out and start living again. By chance, I came to an equestrian club on the outskirts of the city. I have always been interested in equestrianism, but due to my busy schedule, I have not been able to practice. Now, I finally have the time and energy to devote to this hobby. At the club, I met Maryanne, an equestrian trainer, a small woman with short, elegant hair. We met at the stables, where she was tending to a date red stallion. I was a bit new to horses, so Maryanne offered to give me some guidance. We got to know each other very well. Maryanne had big bright eyes and an infectious smile. We talked about everything from horsemanship to personal life. I learned that Maryanne's husband is a successful businessman, but unfortunately, he is severely allergic to horses, which frustrates Maryanne because she can't share her hobby with him. Gradually, I found myself looking forward to spending time with Maryanne. We often rode horses together, walking through the woods and enjoying the tranquility of nature. Sometimes we would go to the club's cafe after a ride and talk from late afternoon until the stars came out. I felt that this was the first time since my divorce that I had really relaxed and had someone to talk to and share with. I began to visit the equestrian club more often, sometimes even taking time off for Maryanne. Our relationship was growing stronger than we realized, but we kept our distance unspoken. After all, Maryanne was married, and I had just been through a failed marriage. Neither of us was willing to step out of line. However, the stirrings in my heart became harder and harder to ignore. I found myself thinking about Maryanne and looking forward to every meeting. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew that Maryanne had become an integral part of my life. Just as I was immersed in this subtle affair, the peace was shattered by the sudden news that Mara's lover, Edward, had been found dead on the side of the highway in what the police suspected to be a murder case. And I became the biggest suspect. The news of Edward's death was a bomb that exploded in my life. I was quickly approached by the police, who told me that I was the prime suspect in the murder. They told me that I was the prime suspect in the murder because I had had an argument with Edward and my whereabouts on the night of the murder could not be verified. I'm spinning out of my mind. I can't believe it. How could I kill someone? As much as I hated Edward, I would never retaliate in such a way. But the police didn't seem to give a damn about my defense, and they insisted that I be interrogated. The following days were a nightmare. I was repeatedly summoned for questioning by the police. They searched my personal life, accessed my phone records, and even searched my home and office. I felt that my privacy had been wantonly violated and my personality ruthlessly trampled on. The media quickly caught on to the case, and they started digging into my life. My divorce, my affair with Mara, were all turned upside down. I became a suspect in everyone's eyes and the talk of the town. I felt extremely humiliated and helpless. To add to my despair, Maryanne began to distance herself from me when she found out I was involved. She stopped answering my calls and stopped coming to the club. I could understand her concern, but I was still filled with loss. I felt like a lonely boat, drifting helplessly in the storm. My daughter Jenny is my only comfort. Although she is young, she seems to feel my pain. She often hugged me and told me she believed I was innocent. Her support gave me the courage to carry on. After repeated interrogations by the police, I gradually learned the details of the case. It turned out that Edward died in a seemingly accidental car accident, but the police found suspicious evidence at the scene and suspected that it was a murder. And I, because of my grudge against Edward, naturally became the key target of suspicion. But I was convinced that the truth would come out. I hired the best lawyer I could find and began to defend myself. I scrutinized my alibi and tried to remember every detail of the night of the murder. I knew that only by finding the real murderer could I be cleared of any suspicion and regain my freedom. The investigation was at a standstill. The police couldn't seem to find any more evidence, but they couldn't rule me out either. I felt more stressed than ever, and every day was like an ordeal. I began to wonder if I would ever be able to get out of this vortex and start living again. But I couldn't give up. I have to stick it out for myself, for Jenny, and for Maryanne. With the help of my lawyer, I began to defend myself vigorously. I provided an alibi for the night of the murder, confirming that I was attending a business meeting at a hotel. I also made a list of possible suspects, including some of Edward's business rivals and personal enemies. The police began to verify the information. Gradually, some new clues surfaced. The police discovered that Edward was involved in some illegal dealings during his lifetime, and his death was probably related to that. Some witnesses also gave explosive testimonies, pointing to another suspect. As the investigation progressed, my suspicions were gradually eliminated. The police finally targeted one of Edward's business partners. After careful investigation, they succeeded in obtaining key evidence and brought the real killer to justice. When I learned that I had been officially cleared, I felt a sense of relief. The nightmare was finally over, and I was free to start a new life. But at the same time, I was exhausted. I was physically and mentally exhausted by the experience and needed time to repair the trauma and rebuild myself. I contacted Maryanne first to tell her the good news. To my surprise, she was overjoyed and even shed tears. She told me that she had been secretly following the progress of the case and that she had never doubted my innocence. She distanced herself from me because she didn't want to bring me more trouble. I was deeply touched. It turned out that Maryanne had been quietly supporting me and waiting for me in my darkest moments. We embraced each other tightly, and our tears were intertwined. At that moment, I felt the warmth and hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. I then returned to my daughter, Jenny. She was overjoyed to see my acquittal. She took my hand and told me how proud she was of me. I hugged her tightly and felt the power of affection. Gradually, my life got back on track. I returned to work and devoted myself to new projects. My relationship with Maryanne grew, and we began to think about our future together. Although the pain of the past is still there, I know that if we walk together, there is nothing we can't overcome. A year later, I received an invitation to Jenny's wedding. My daughter had grown up and was ready to get married. At the wedding, I saw Mara again, and we smiled at each other, wishing each other true happiness. Looking at Jenny and her groom, I felt a lot of emotions. I suddenly realized that life is like this, full of ups and downs, sweet and sour. The key is to learn to accept, learn to let go, and learn to find hope and strength in adversity. After the wedding, I went for a walk on the beach alone. The sea breeze was gentle, and the sunset was gorgeous. I thought back to these years of little by little. My heart is full of gratitude. Yes, life is never smooth sailing, but it is these ups and downs, creating today's me, a more mature, stronger me. I took a deep breath and made a wish to the sea. I would like to spend the rest of my life to love, to pursue, to embrace the beauty of life. Because I understand that there is no eternal pain in life, only constant growth and transcendence. And that is the meaning of my life. Jenny's wedding was a turning point in my life. On that day, I not only witnessed my daughter's happiness, but also made up my mind to start a brand new life. I knew it was time to let go of the past and embrace the future. Shortly after the wedding, I asked Maryanne to marry me. To my surprise, she accepted my proposal. She told me that she had realized her feelings for me when I was in trouble. She wanted to spend the rest of her life with me and face the trials of life together. We entered into marriage with the blessings of our friends and family. This time, I don't have any reservation. I want to devote myself to this relationship wholeheartedly. I know that with Maryanne's support and companionship, I will become even stronger. After our marriage, we moved to a new place. We decorated our new home and planned our future together. We often rode horses together and took walks in the quiet woods. We shared our thoughts with each other and talked late into the night. I felt so happy and fulfilled. A new opportunity has opened up in my career. My creativity was highly recognized by the client, and the company decided to promote me to the position of director. I was both nervous and excited about my new responsibilities and challenges. I knew that this was a great opportunity to show my ability. With Maryanne's encouragement, I have devoted myself to my work. I led the team to develop a series of new products, which were very well received by the market. My career has reached a new peak. I feel that I am realizing the value of my life. At the same time, I'm trying to mend my relationship with my daughter Jenny. I often invited her and my son-in-law to our home, and we chatted and reminisced about the past. Gradually, our hearts became close again. I know that no matter what happens, my family will always be my strongest support. A few years went by, and I was completely settled into my new life. Maryanne and I grew so close that we even started thinking about having a child. My career was booming and I was recognized as one of the best in the business. But I have never forgotten my past experiences. They are like a mirror, always reminding me to cherish the moment and face difficulties. It is those ups and downs that made me who I am today. They taught me to be strong and to grow. Now, I am no longer the fragile, confused John the First once was. I have learned how to find hope in adversity, how to revitalize in setbacks. I understand that life is never easy. The key is to have a positive heart. I often think back to Mara and Edward, to those painful days. But I no longer feel anger or resentment. I have learned to let go and forgive. Because I realize that only by letting go of the past can I embrace the future, and only by forgiving others can I truly free myself. Now, Maryanne and I are expecting the birth of our first child. I know that this will be another important milestone in my life. I am ready for new responsibilities and new challenges. Because I realize that life is a journey forward. As long as we are brave, as long as we have hope, there is no difficulty that cannot be overcome. And that is the wisdom of life that I want to pass on to my children. Outside the window, the sun was shining. I smiled, feeling the beauty of life. I know that no matter what lies ahead, I am ready. Because I believe that after the storm, there will always be a rainbow. After the storm, there will always be a rainbow. And I am heading towards my own rainbow. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.